Yeah, it's New Breed. It's Jay. It's Tim. We got Adam on again. So continuing the conversation. Adam was talking about how, for those of you that aren't living under a rock, Orthodox is finishing up this year with a brief tour, and they actually just got added to the Christmas Burns Red Show in scenic Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And Adam, you were just saying that you guys weren't planning on doing much of anything. You were going to just kind of ride into the new year, and yet this kind of dropped in your lap, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we were planning to do the four shows that we announced right after Furnace Fest. Those was like we're like we need to play something to end the year. These are a few, I say smaller markets that we hadn't hit in forever. Like somehow we've never headlined a show in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't know how that
Kind of
has
interesting.
happened. Yeah, we played at like a bar in 2016, and then the second time we played there was Whitechapel's Christmas show in 2022. So we skipped some steps, and we're like, we need to actually play an actual like Knoxville hardcore show and do all that. So that was like, basically let's do that. That was our plan. And then uh kind of got hit up out of nowhere for this Ghost Inside tour because Void of Vision had to drop. And Ghost Inside is the full story is Ghost Inside was overseas with they're currently overseas with Gideon and Boundaries. Void Division had to drop, and they actually went to Boundaries and were like, "Would you guys have any interest in doing this?" And Boundaries like, "We can't do it, but you should ask Orthodox to do it because we were
Awesome.
already we were in discussions for the tour originally, and then it just didn't work out. But sent us the avails, and we got the offer, took the offer, and like within 2 days we announced the tour. So that all went from having four shows to play to 26 in a matter of 4 days. So
So much of those December plans, but you guys will be home before
yeah,
the holidays, right? Like your last show is the Lancaster show, which I believe
mm-hmm.
is like the 10th or 11th, something like that, right?
14th, December
14th, yeah,
14th.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect then.
Um, yeah. The bummer is my company trip to Cabo, I had to cancel my arrangements for, but
Oh,
it's okay. I'll survive.
Yeah, you're young. You can always go back.
yeah, right. You
Yeah.
can always go again. So speaking of Whitechapel, I just saw the Lorna Shore show last night, and
Hmm.
I was telling Tim like they were a band I always heard but never really paid attention to, and I walked away solidly impressed by how absolutely ridiculously heavy they were, and
Whitechapel?
they sounded
Oh,
fantastic, like they
dude, they
sounded
are
fantastic.
in my opinion, the number one deathcore band of all time.
Yeah. See, remember we were talking about that,
Yeah,
Jay? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
Somatic.
thinking. I'm like, I think Adam loves that band.
Oh man. I mean, Somatic Defilement, I think to this day, in like the core adjacent world, is the heaviest record that has ever been released.
Wow.
And to follow that up with This Is Exile was also just insane. There's a couple of records that like aren't my thing, but they don't have an objectively bad record, and they're
Hmm.
actually like the last two. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm not as big a fan," but I'm like, "This is it's
Yeah,
amazing songs." And then
yeah,
Yeah.
live, they are a perfect band. It
yeah.
is
He
truly crazy.
he hits all the he's all over the place.
Yeah,
I remember hearing Somatic Defilement. I remember hearing This Is Exile. I missed the entire middle catalog. And then I remember there was the hubbub when the last two albums came out and he did some cleans. But this morning I sat down and I started with Ken and I started working my way backwards. And I'm like, yo, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Like, how did I miss
man,
this band? Because this shit is really good.
Yeah.
they are a deathcore band that like I feel like a lot of the bands there's let me rephrase this. There's very few bands from their era that are still around today that didn't like try to do what's popular. And like at certain points, certain bands are like, "Oh, gent's cool. Let's start doing that." All this, they veered from the goal, but I wouldn't say that their trajectory career wise has been like all on like a straight line, but everything connects to one another. Where when you listen record to record to record, like, "Oh, I see how this got here."
Mm.
It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't feel like anything but a Whitechapel record, and there's not many bands that sound like them that can pull it off, especially because you've got, I mean, Phil Bozeman's just such an evil sounding person.
There was in our chat group, we have a chat group of me, Tim, and a bunch of other dudes. And somebody posted it was from Reddit where Phil Bozeman goes on the deathcore room, and he starts talking about how this upcoming album, and people are talking shit because he said it's going to be their heaviest album, and he's like, come on, we're talking about like fucking obese demons and blah blah blah. And then somebody gets him going on video games, and the dude literally switches topics and starts talking Diablo 4, and I'm like, this is, again, how did I miss this band? How did I miss this band?
They're one of a kind, truly. And
so go on.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna brag more about how they're a perfect live band. Like, I just hadn't seen them in forever, and we played with them in Knoxville a few years ago, and I stood in the back of the room just like, even this band that I'd seen. I mean, they're from Knoxville. They used to play Nashville before they really had this worldwide popularity. They played Nashville all the time. My first time seeing them was at a place called the Muse, and they were playing. Actually, it wasn't my first time seeing them. My first time seeing them where it was like crazy was at this place called the Muse, where they were direct support to Suffocation. Decrepit Birth was on it. Veil of Maya was the opener. And the Muse is 150 cap room, and they sold like 400 tickets. And right after This Is Exile came out. So, I mean, they were here all the time beforehand, and I would see them not really knowing who they were when I was younger, but seeing them like right after This Is Exile came out there, and then multiple other times at this place called Rocket Town and all these different venues. Awesome. So growing up, always a big fan, always a big supporter, and then hadn't seen them in like 6 or 7 years just because I've been busy, and they don't, whenever they were in town, I wasn't. Right. Seeing them again, I was like, this is a perfect band. Every facet of this band is perfect.
Yeah, they sounded.
Did you see the video? That new video that we did, Jay? A Visceral Wretch.
Oh, that new song is fucking bonkers.
Yeah, the video in the cave is great, man.
Yeah.
That cave video is great, dude.
Have you seen the video of when they had the Suicide Silence did the benefit show for Mitch, and Phil comes out for Unanswered?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
That is like Deathcore 101, the legendary, like, here you go.
Right. Here's how to do it, folks. Here's how to do it. So,
Truly.
Adam, I'm glad you brought up, how you guys are ending the year touring, because I wanted to pick your brain ostensibly for this episode. We do have some people who are in bands. We have some younger fans who want to be in bands. I wanted to pick your brain about the whole touring thing, right?
Okay.
Tim was in a band and played shows. I've obviously never done that. High school marching band does not fucking count. No jokes, people. No jokes. So I wanted to ask you, Adam, like some of the like how it works. So, for example, right? So you were talking about, okay, so this band A is putting together a tour, and you get reached out to. What is the genesis of this of like a tour cycle? Is it Orthodox has now coming out and they say, okay, well, we want to do a headliner, we need to find 4 openers, or how does all that stuff, like, what's the first pin that falls that gets the thing rolling, and how does that all come together where you end up with a package of N amount of bands doing Y amount of shows?
I mean, so little peek behind the glass for people. Orthodox is planning to do a headliner next year. We will have an album out next year. And we're trying to do a release, or we're trying to do a release tour right around the time that it comes out. So the way that in this particular situation, the way that this came about was we actually got a different tour offer. It was a really awesome offer, great money, great billing, all this from a friend of ours, Vans, who's also putting out an album and doing a headliner next year. And it would fall right around the time that our record comes out. We're like, oh, this would be a great time to do this tour. And all of us were on board. And then I was like, hey, we're never going to be worth, like, the time that you are worth the most tickets is right after you put an album out. We should sell our own tickets and not our friends' tickets, because as much as we may help that tour, we can't then turn and say, hey, we were a big deal of all these sold out shows. Like, the industry sees through the lines where it wants to with bands' value, but like if you like Boundaries, for instance, we just did the tour with them over the summer, sold 23 out of the 26 shows out. It was their first ever headliner, and we get to now take that and be like, we were a part of this awesome tour. Boundaries just gets to say whether, and this is not to say that we sold the shows out. Boundaries, that was the Boundaries tour, 100%. But whether we did or didn't, they get to go and say, we sold out these 23 shows. And now that's how they end up with the Beartooth tour. That's how they ended up with the Ghost Inside tour overseas. And then they were like, hey, can you do the same thing in America? That's how they end up with the Plot and You tour they just announced.
Yeah, they just announced.
The Danny Wimmer Festival they just announced with Sonic Temple or something like that. Those statistics really help, which isn't really the question you asked, but that's something that will come
No, it's
up at
part
some
of it,
point.
right?
But
Like, how does
yeah,
this? And I mean, and you
I
don't
just
need to share, Adam. I don't want you to share anything like like anything that you really can't disclose. But I'm really just trying to understand in the greater scheme of things, like how does this shit come together?
so with that is we are looking at okay, so with this particular situation, I'll just kind of speak on this one because it answers some of the questions and shows a glimpse into how the business operation works on that. So we turned down this one tour offer, and it was because we were like, we need to do our own. So that was the moment we were like, okay, we're doing a headliner with the new record because we just saw what playing somewhat smaller rooms and selling them out did for our best friends. And we think with this new record and the way that that tour went for us, we think we can maybe do that ourselves. So the goal now is we're going to do this headliner right when we have the most perceived value. It gets you paid the most because you have all this buzz and the spotlight on you from this new music. But also, if you sell those tickets, you then start your record cycle out on a really strong note where you can then go to other agents, other bands, and say, hey, we're worth all of this. Take us on your tours. Or we're worth this slot. Well, we can't give you that slot. Okay, well, if you're going to give us this slot, we're worth this, so you need to give us this much money. It's basically your value is based, like a lot of people think that like the Spotify numbers are a big deal. It's absolutely not.
Okay.
There's bands out there. I'm not going to name any names, but like Orthodox doesn't stream a ton of Spotify. Like we have like we fluctuate between 25 to 35,000 monthly listeners a month, which that is a lot of people.
Still that's not,
not
that unimpressive. Yeah.
That's more people that's about as many people who are in the town I grew up in. It's a cool thing to have. But there's bands out there that stream over 100,000. Some have streaming numbers that are like 400 plus, 500 plus that I know for a solid fact we sell more tickets than. So those weird metrics are like, yeah, your internet optics are great. That's cool. It's a good look for the tour. Does it translate to more than kids hitting the like button?
Yes, to butts
exactly.
and seats. Yes.
Exactly. So that's where the decision to headline comes from is we need to get our metrics, our numbers so that we can then present it and do tours where the draw isn't our problem. They need us to help sell their draw. How do we capitalize on being the best craftsman so that we can then later be the tool for somebody else's craft, basically, is how you do that. That's what at least at our level, that's what that is.
But let me ask you this, though, not to cut you off, but before I forget, and I want to make a point to what you said. Okay, yeah, a band has 100,000, monthly listeners, but out of them bands, how many of them actually put on a good show? You know what I mean? Like, how many of them bands just stand there and they just noodle on the guitar and everybody's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you guys play and it's like an energetic show. Like, to me, that means a lot, too.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate industry to be a part of where talent, performance, energy, and passion don't mean shit in the grand scheme of things in terms of how far you get. Some of the best bands in the world that I've ever seen in the world of hardcore there's two bands from Nashville called Cove and Yautja. Both of them are three pieces. And both of them are
fantastic.
Better bands musically and performance wise than almost any band I've ever seen or toured with. The type of bands that when you see it, it made me want to like quit being a musician. And none of them ever took off. And it's a lot to do with the fact that even another band for that is like Chamber. Chamber should be massive. They just put out a song today, Tears of Joy.
Yeah, it's great.
It is the most fucked up song of 2024, hands down. But because it is so instrumentally and they are so on another level that sometimes it kind of goes over the head of the people that need the lesser levels. And that's not to say that bands that play those lesser levels don't put on great shows like Sanguisugabog. Not the craziest music in the world, but they find a way to make it seem like it's the coolest shit you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's important there. So performance plays into it when the people are there, but it isn't always what brings people to see it, unfortunately.
Right.
Especially with how oversaturated the market is these days. So
talk to me about that, Adam. So, okay, you guys decide you're doing a headliner, right? Is it and you've reached a tier, right, professionally, and the reputation of your band. Is it like you start calling up buddies and say, hey, I want to take you out? Like, how does it, do you have to deal with the label to figure out who the openers are going to be? How does that piece, like, how does that bill come together?
So at our level, nobody has a say in it but us. Our
Okay.
agents and our agent and our manager will give ideas, but we don't.
Okay.
If we don't like the idea, we'll just tell them no. And end of the day, a lot of bands, I think, either don't care enough or kind of blur the lines of like they forget their agent or their manager works for them. And like you want a manager and you want an agent who act like your boss, but at the end of the day, you pay them. So it's kind of a
Right.
weird dynamic to balance, but you kind of just have to have that trust between your team that this is the right idea. And sometimes your agent has to be like, you know what, if this fucks up, I get to tell you I told you so. And you're like, yeah, cool. And if it doesn't, I get to do the same. So that's just how that goes. And uh, so for us, it is a lot of, we have a call. We all take about a week before the call to think of who are the bands we want to take out. And then we start having the conversation of, okay, well, that band's awesome, but like, are they worth 204? Are they worth an opening slot? Oh, you think they should be direct support? Well, they haven't put new music out since such and
Gotcha.
such.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, well, they're going to have a new album out. That changes everything. We can talk about that, so on and so forth. You start having a group conversation to come to an agreement of what a band's value is, so then you can figure out how to prioritize who's getting the offer when and for what. And then that's how you establish your list. And then you go down the list. And a lot of it for us, because we've been around a while, is hitting up our friends and be like, hey, what is your plans for this time? And
Right.
they're like,
Right.
oh, nothing. Oh, cool. Would you be into this at all? And I always preface it with like, I know Orthodox is not everybody's cup of tea. It is, and that's so okay. So I know some of my friends love our band, but don't like our music. And that's fine. I don't care.
Okay.
So like one of my very, very, very close friends, his name's Harold Griffin. He plays guitar for the band Koyo. That was one where I called him, was like, hey, we'd love to take you guys on the road. Would you guys be open to playing with us like as direct support? Is that something you'd be into? He's like, dude, we would love that. We just can't do it in that time frame. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, at least now we know for the future.
Right. The door's
Assuming,
open. Yeah.
yeah, it said for there'll probably be an arena band in like 3 years, but all the same, like, but that's kind of how that whole process goes. Is at least for us, because we have those relationships, we can reach out to that. But for a lot of bands where they don't know how to properly approach those conversations, it does become, Jay, you're my agent. Tim, you're such and such as band's agent. Jay, hit up Tim and find out this band's availability and if they have any interest in touring with us at all. And that's how those conversations begin.
Right, right. And then Tim says, well, band A isn't available, but I've got this other band on my roster, band B. Would 100%. You be interested in taking them out? And this is where some of these janky lineups come from. Okay.
Sometimes, I mean, at the end of the day, it still comes down to approval and so on and so forth. And I think what's been tricky for us is we're trying to book it for mid to late of next year. And we started booking it in August. And it's hard for a band that people know that people care about us. People know that the tour will be good, but it's not like we're the ghost inside going to somebody saying, hey, next August, we're going to do a headliner. It's going to be playing these huge rooms. It's going to sell tickets. Can you commit to it? It's hard for bands to look at us as that band and be like, oh, we'll commit to you 8 months out. We'll commit to you a year out, because
gotcha.
It's kind of taking a risk. But that's kind of where you just have to have the friends or the connections, or at least just hope your notoriety carries you through it and be like, well, here's what our last record did. Our trajectory points that this is what this record's going to do. Here's the tours we just did. Here's the numbers we did for this. And you kind of have to sell it, this, that, and the other. But thankfully, a lot of people that we're trying to bring are aware enough of what the scene actually is. And don't just go on Spotify numbers, So,
right.
Yeah.
Has there been bands that like have got offers from like your management and have been like, fuck that?
I've never been dissed like that before. I mean, they may have said it behind closed doors.
Yeah, definitely.
I've heard conversations of friends' bands that they send an offer and an agent will be like, the band thinks this would be a bad move for them or something. Yeah. And I've totally been told like, oh, we don't think you're worth more tickets than us. And I'm like, that's fine.
Like, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah. Another band we tried to get for this headliner was Judiciary. And that's the perfect example of like, for us, the perfect direct support band, because there's a valid argument that Judiciary is bigger than Orthodox. But there's also a valid argument that it could go the other way. And so you want, when you're our size, especially, you want a band that is going to be hard to follow, because we're not worth 1,000 tickets on our own, but we might be worth a whole bunch more if it's like, I kind of want to see Orthodox, but I don't know. Oh, Judiciary's playing? Like, that's going to be fucking crazy. They were another band where in similar situation, they just couldn't make it work for the time. I don't remember if they couldn't make it work for the time frame or they were recording something else. Didn't work out, but that's like, in my mind, an ideal situation is like a band like Judiciary, where they've got this tenure, they've got these awesome records, they're doing these awesome tours. They haven't done a real proper headliner on their own. So their numbers aren't even super established yet. But you want that band that's going to really challenge you every night. Like, you don't want to watch your direct support play and be like, oh, that's going to be easy. Like, you want to walk out.
Right. Like, you want a band as a fan. There is nothing better than going to a show where you can tell that all of these bands are trying to blow each other off the stage. It's like, well, okay, beat this. Beat this. And the example I'll give you using you guys, it was you guys, Boundaries and Variants at the church. All three of you were trying to outplay each other, and it brings the energy up in the room, because you can tell that, follow that, guys. Good luck. You know?
I think the coolest example of that for us was the Boundaries tour we just did, whereas Boundaries, us, Kayanashi, and No Cure, because all of us are so different, but like, No Cure had the craziest reactions I've ever seen of like an opener in rooms that size. And then they were selling more merch than us some nights, which was awesome. And then Kayanashi is this super wild card, mathcore crazy band with this insane TikTok following, where they play and their biggest moments would be like as crazy as our biggest moments in a completely different way. And so then we'd be like, God damn, we have to follow Kayanashi. That's like, at this crazy heavy metal show, you wouldn't think that following a band like Kayanashi would be so hard, but because of how good they are and how much fun they are, it was really hard to do. So that made us be like, all right, now we have to take their energy and bring our own sort of like the weird, ominous shit that we do and somehow capitalize on that. And so night after night, Boundaries, like Corey or Nathan would come to me and be like, I fucking hate following your band. I'm like, well, I fucking hate following your openers. So, we're all here. Like,
I'll tell you what, man, there is no better compliment, even for the band my band wasn't big or anything, but like, there's no better compliment than like playing and then the headliner going, fuck you, man. Like, we got to follow that. And I'm like, good luck. Like, there's every time we played, they'd be like, we're going to put you on the headline slot. Nah, put us right before, because we're going to show that headliner, like, yo, you got to follow us, man.
And that's also like, there's a level of competition in the music industry naturally because it is a business, but you want to have a friendly competition. I don't want somebody who's like actually mad that we do better than them, because I'm never going to actually be mad if a band has a better set than us, because it's just how that shit goes. It's not a personal thing. It's just, it is. There's so many variables to everything about it where you just can't be upset about it. So like, when you have like the bond that like us and Boundaries have, there was like one show where it was actually that Burials tour where we played, I think, Marquee Theater, and somebody like threw like a $5 bill on stage during our set. Our set was fucking crazy. Just shout out to Denver, Colorado, because that is one of my favorite cities to play forever, even though I throw up there a lot because of the oxygen or the altitude sickness. But we played an insane set. So I took that $5 bill and handed it to Corey on the way off. It's like, yeah, that's for you having to follow us. And then they played an even crazier set. And he's like, yeah, you might want to hold on to this. I was like, God damn it. Like, it's just, you just have to have fun with it. And that's like the level of where like the nudge of like, hey, we just did really good. So good fucking luck. Like that's the more fun way to approach it, I suppose.
Gotcha.
Slap them in the ass as you're walking off the stage.
Yeah.
Good luck. Adam, kind of a nerdy question, but routing. Is there a method to that madness? Is there a particular like, okay, well, we know that from Nashville goes Little Rock, from Little Rock goes Dallas. Like, I don't know. Like, is there just like tried and true routes that everybody knows that, okay, this is the loop? Or because I mean, Tim, you remember when we did a whole episode where we were bagging on Dying Fetus because their routing was like Chicago to Denver to Vancouver to like Bismarck, North Dakota. Like Ray Charles routed this thing. Is there like a logic behind it? Like, is there just like, it's like a good rule of thumb that says when you're routing, these are things you want to consider. These are things you want to think about.
So you want your shows that are not going to be sure things to be kind of like the middle of the week. You don't want to play some random market on a Tuesday because you just don't know. It's already kind of a toss up, whatever. But you also, at the same time, you want your A markets like Denver to be somewhere Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Gotcha.
So you try to hit in those areas there. You try to keep drive times in mind. We try to do Mondays off because Mondays are never good sale days, and we're getting old. We got to have a day off. And there's also certain tours where they will specifically they will try to pick only the markets they know they're going to do really well in because they need for whatever they're trying to reach for the next year.
Right, like we talked about earlier.
These numbers to
need these numbers. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like building a resume. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that's why Philly gets picked over Pittsburgh so often. It's just the population. There's just so many more people in Philadelphia than Pittsburgh or even Asbury Park. Does that mean I want to play Philly more than any of those places? Not necessarily. It's just like if you're trying to pick where the people are that are going that, and also maybe you don't like the city, but like your shows there are crazy. You're like, oh well, we know we're going to do really well in this place, so we need to play there, and so that definitely plays a big part on it. And outside of that, it's just a matter of here's the route we're going to try to go for. Now we're going to reach out to people and see who can get what dates and what have you. And then once you start getting what's called holds for each show, that's when you start seeing the better picture of, okay, we can do this. We can do this date. We can do this date. And that's how it actually starts to form. And sometimes you have to throw an audible where like maybe you were going to do Dallas and then day off in Little Rock, but now it has to be Dallas, Oklahoma City, and then Nashville the next day or something. Like you sometimes have to pivot to make things work, but the overall route for that, it kind of goes according to that. Or for instance, like our headliner last summer, we routed it so that we would end up in Pennsylvania around This Is Hardcore because we knew we were going to be playing This Is Hardcore. This tour that we're doing next year, we've got 2 tentative routes and we're submitted for a festival that would tell whether or not we're going to go towards Florida first or towards California first. And it's like, we're trying to figure out what we want to do, or we're waiting to hear back from that to figure out which way we want to go.
Gotcha. So like, you're going from Philly to Chicago. Oh, well, we thought we were going to Chicago. We're actually going to Cleveland. So maybe we swing by and do Baltimore in the middle, or we do something in between somewhere to make it make sense. Okay.
Sometimes. Yeah. If it calls for it. Yeah. Like there's a lot of travel dates on this one. I will tell you now, if you're ever routing a tour, do not do Denver, Salt Lake City back to back. It is every tour does it.
That drive is brutal, right? Like
drive is brutal. It is scary. And because of its length, you have to do some of it at night, which is worse. And you really only have like a small window of the year where you're certain of what the weather's going to be. So
Jesus,
that shit sucks. We're about to have to do Salt Lake City as well as like 4 Canada shows all in end of November into December. And I'm like, this is gonna suck.
Some snow tires on that bad boy. Jesus. And it wasn't rough. That drive was the one that got Year of the Knife, right? The Colorado to Colorado to Salt Lake. I think that was the
I
accident
think
they
that's
had.
right. Yeah.
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 That's
Really?
got to be fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
So speaking of touring, Adam, what's one thing that you thought was going to be hard when it came to touring that actually surprisingly ended up easy, in your opinion?
That's a good question. It's such a good
I've been
question. I
doing
was
it for,
thinking.
I mean, I've been doing it for so long that I don't really remember what my initial impressions of that was going to be. Um,
Anything
I would
surprised you? Like, I thought laundry was going to be way
I
more painful than this, or something like that.
say what? Say that again.
Like, I thought like doing laundry or finding a shower was going to be way more painful than this.
Planet Fitness
Uh,
for showers.
Planet Fitness is a good one. Honestly, Loves and Pilot, I pay for those showers, man. That's like you go in, you got time to kill, you got this whole bathroom to yourself. It's like 10 to 15 bucks, but you get to just be in there by yourself. Awesome. I just sit and just
Take your
chill.
time, yeah.
I take my
Take your
time,
time.
yeah. I think for me, I was surprised at how easy it was to perform, especially back in the day when we would go out for 25 days and play like 24 shows. Like we did not take days off back in the day because we weren't making any money, weren't selling any t-shirts, weren't really that good, which is why all that other things was happening. But like we just toured hard and constantly because that was how we knew to do it. And doing like performing day to day, like it takes a toll on your body. And I thought that was going to be I thought there'd be like days where it'd be harder to turn that on, which wasn't the case. Even now, even if I'm having a back injury or my voice doesn't feel great or I'm tired, like the moment the show starts, it's like it takes me 15 seconds and I'm there. So that was one that kind of surprised me. Other things that I thought were I mean, touring.
So think about this, Adam. Inverse the question.
Yeah.
Something that you thought was going to be easy that turned out to be difficult. Something you're like, oh, I'm not worried about this. And then you're like, whoa, now I got to worry about this. This is bigger than a bread box.
Well, you're not vegan, are you?
No, but I've toured with many people that are, and that is hard.
It's got to be
Yeah.
brutal.
Actually,
Like,
yeah,
what
that's a good one. That's a good point. Is finding good food, especially when we first starting out, and we weren't getting catering budgets or per diems or meals, and you're surviving off of potato chips and protein bars, or at that time McDonald's.
Jesus.
And
I'd be dead.
yeah, I mean, you really eat like shit on the road. It's bad. I think I thought it'd be easier to drive at night. I personally am a really bad night driver. Like it's a joke in Orthodox that like I don't do them. Like well, it's not even a joke. It's I don't do them. The joke is that like I'll blink and then not unblink. And it's just even though you like in your brain you're like I don't think I could ever fall asleep while driving. That's such a serious thing. It takes all your focus.
No, it's easy.
Dude, some of the best naps I've ever had are like a quick like oh shit while I'm holding the steering wheel. Like it's
Jesus.
like
yeah.
it's a crazy phenomenon to like your brain's just like you can't do this now. So that was one thing.
I think my worst fear in touring would be what if I got to go to the bathroom and we're in the fucking middle of Colorado and there's just barren wasteland. It's like, what do I do?
You suck it the fuck up.
Fuck
It
that,
is,
man.
yeah, that or I mean, we pull off and piss in ditches every other
pissing's
day.
easy, but if you're eating McDonald's all day, every day, that's a terrible lifestyle.
Yeah, I've never had an emergency like that before, but
hopefully I didn't jinx you, man.
No, I think I did shit my pants once though. But I don't think it was even like I don't think it was even like like we're on the road. I think I was like trying to get to the venue and I thought I could trust a fart and couldn't. And I was just like just had to do the waddle of shame for the last like 3 blocks to get to the place.
Yep.
But
what you guys should do is get a Home Depot bucket, some trash bags, and if you gotta go, you gotta go.
No, sir.
No?
You can't
You're not shitting in my van. Are you kidding me?
No, not in the
way.
van. Not in the van. I mean, like you
Oh,
pull over
out there? probably not the worst idea, but we've not run into that's not as common of a thing. I don't know how often that's happening to you in traffic, but it doesn't happen with us very often. So,
Oh, okay. Well, eat McDonald's, I'd be terrified.
Oh yeah, if I was living off fast food, my God, it'd be
your body
terrible.
adjusts to that pretty quickly. You just never really feel good.
Yeah, exactly. I eat McDonald's, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Adam, you bring up an interesting point, which I don't think a lot of people think about. Um, your day literally consists of so your direct support, right? Which is what, 35, 40 minutes of a slot, right?
Yeah.
Playtime. You spend your entire day traveling, preparing, and getting ready to do 40 minutes of performance, and then you are unpreparing, getting ready to travel to do it all over again. Wash, rinse, repeat. And I don't think people ever think about the time not spent on stage is a factor of 10 more than the time spent on stage.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's exactly like you said, is you wake up. For us, we sleep at truck stops. We build bunks into the van and we sleep in the van at truck stops. Saves money, keeps us from getting our stuff stolen. That's the biggest advice I can give to any young band is don't stay at your friend's house. Don't buy hotels. Sleep in your fucking van. This is not a vacation. You are at work. It is
that always drives me
like,
nuts. Like, how do you not have somebody sleep in the fucking van when you have all these people get their shit stolen? It's like, yo.
Yeah, and it's like, I understand. Like, every now and then you do it. Like, we'll get an Airbnb on an off day where we can back the trailer up and keep it to where we know it's safe. But like, too many of my friends who have been touring forever will be like, "Oh no, this place looks good," and then it's not. You just never know. So, right. Especially when you're first starting out and you're not making a lot of money, like, don't waste it on hotels, especially how expensive lodging is these days. It's not worth it. You get to sleep for like 6 hours, then you have to shower and leave that day anyways. Just sleep in the van. It's not the most comfortable sleep in the world, but again, you're clocking in from the day you leave your house. So treat it like it is a job and that you're on the clock. But so yeah, we wake up at truck stops. Usually me or Austin will wake up and drive us to whatever coffee shop one of us has found the night before. That's within the city. I will work from there for a little bit, and then everyone else wakes up. We're good to go. We go. Then you find lunch, and then you go meander through a record store, or if you need to go to Guitar Center and get something, you go do that. And then our load-ins are usually anywhere from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. 4 p.m. is on the later side. And you load in all your gear. If you get a sound check, that's like a 15-minute process. Once you're on the stage, it's 15 minutes to get on and off and set up merch. And then you sit at the venue until the doors open. And then you sit at the venue until your set time. Then you play. And then you sit at the venue until it's time to leave. So it's not super glamorous. And I think that's also why you see, like, when people have toured together, they get so close, is because you just have the person in front of you. Yeah, that's it. So
that kind of makes me understand a lot now why a lot of musicians are alcoholics, because it's a lot of sitting around, and it's like, I drink, obviously. So it's like me, if I'm sitting around bored on a fucking Thursday, I'm going to be like, oh,
grab a beer.
I got a couple drink tickets. And then it just Friday night happens. And then Saturday night, I now I understand how that like all starts to happen, because there's a lot of people I know that are like, dude, I leave tour and I don't drink at all because I just got fucked up for a month straight. And it's like, Jesus Christ, dude.
I mean, think about it. You're going from city to city to city, seeing all of your friends, people you haven't seen since the last show, the last tour. Like, there's an excuse to drink nonstop. Excuse to party.
I mean, even bands like Varials, who is not a bunch of drinkers, they don't get fucked up, but like they have a bottle of Jaeger on their rider. Like, it's things like that where like, oh, we're here to play, and they just gave us these booze. It's like things like that definitely can get people into shitty situations pretty quickly. But
yeah, and then if you have friends like me and Jay, like if you weren't straight edge, like at the show, I'd be like, get him a fucking drink, and then the next city, it's like, oh, my friend Tom's gonna get me a drink. It's like, yeah, I see how that culminates now. That's crazy.
100%. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
So Adam, when you think about the best venues you play, right? Or the venues that not your necessarily favorites, but the best venues you play at. What do they all have in common?
Jay, I was not expecting this, Jay. This is interesting, actually.
I did some thinking today. I was sitting here, I was
Yeah.
staring over the space. I'm like, well, we told Adam we wanted to talk about touring, so I wanted to ask him some questions that only he can answer.
I'm going to be totally honest. I completely forgot about the touring thing. So logging onto this call, I was like, I have no fucking idea what
Oh,
I'm
no
about to do.
worries.
So
No worries.
I do want to get into new record, all that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
too. So
yeah. Venues, favorite venues, what they have in common. This sounds terrible, but a place for me to be the fuck away from everybody else.
There you go.
And I don't mean that disparagingly. Like, I make it a point every show to go out and talk to people and meet people that are at the show, because you're paying to see me perform music. Like, I'm not better than you. I'm just on the other side of this equation. So I try to make it a point to be like, hey, what's up? Good to meet you. The difference is that you got really excited to come to this show. You traveled, you're there, you paid, you want to get your money's worth. Your day 14 and your show 14 out of 17 days. I didn't sleep the last few nights and I haven't eaten, and I just played a set where I threw my neck out. I don't really want to talk to people. But right. I try to make it a point to be out there and talk to people, because it does mean a lot. I remember being the person that was at the show. And it was always so cool to see the person from the band walking around. You're like, oh, that's awesome. Or I would hate when a band were like, we'll be around, blah, blah, blah. And you don't see them. So it's having that space is great for a lot of reasons. It gives the bands a place to decompress. It gives a place to rest is so huge, but also like it gives me room to go like sit, cool off, calm down. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Let's go talk to people. Also not having to like look around the corner before you take your pants off to put on your stage clothes. Awesome. Having your own private bathroom that's clean when you get there and then overflowing when you leave. Like love not having to use the we call it the general population bathroom. It is rough when that's, especially because like when we're on tour, the only thing on the Orthodox rider is we want a case of water to ourselves, 24-pack of water. If you put a case of water in front of me, I will be drinking it from the moment I get there till the moment I leave, because especially for vocals, it's very important you stay hydrated because your body needs to rejuvenate that muscle. So I'm nervously drinking water constantly to make sure that I can yell at people. And naturally, I have to piss all the time. So right before we play, I'm like, oh, need to go pee. And then you walk in and like the way that I've played over the last few years, wearing a fucking hockey jersey or some shit that definitely makes me stand out. And then I got to go stand and just wait for this dude to finish pissing while he's texting on one hand. And then I got to like rush it at the urinal, go wash my hands and go. And I'm like, man, it'd be so cool if I could just go to the green room, take a whiz and leave. So that additional just like separate space, it just makes it so much easier. Also, if I don't have to hear the show loudly, not being around but like blasting decibels all day, awesome. So that's probably what my favorite things. It doesn't necessarily mean that some of my favorite venues don't have that. Like one of my favorite venues in the country is the Sanctuary in Detroit. The green room is literally this like brick, 4 walls of brick right next to the stage. It's loud as fuck. There's no Wi-Fi. It's always cold and it smells weird. And I love that venue. It's one of my favorite places. The church. There's no fucking green room at the church. No. Like but I love that venue. Well, actually, I say that there is the nursery room that is down the hall from that is technically the green room. So there is a green room at the church. I forgot about that. But even if there wasn't, venues like that is like the experience is what makes the room a lot of the times. And that's more important because I can feel like shit, not have any space. And then we play a crazy set and I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. That's the whole point. So, but if I get to a point where I can have tons of places like the Nile Theater or the Masquerade in Atlanta or Saturn in Birmingham, places like that where they have these artist dedicated rooms where you can go be and just take a break from the socially draining side of things. It makes everything else at the show feel easier to deal with.
Yeah, and then it's easier to go out after your set and
do the thing.
Shit. Yeah.
Do the thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like last time we seen you. I was like, we're in the back room. You're like, yeah, give me a minute. I'm like, no, I got you. I know what you mean. I was just saying we're out here. So like, I totally get it. It's just like, and it's funny, dude, because like every time like we see you guys that I'm there, it's like you come out and like you could just see like I'll just look over at the bar like, I think I'm gonna grab another drink, and there's just people like, should I go up and talk to him? You know what I mean? Like it's fucking crazy to witness, man. It's like I told you last time. I was like, there's this dude that is nonstop, just like, I got to talk to him, and it's just like they don't come up to you because I guess they feel kind of like in a way like I don't want to bother him, but I do want to talk to him. You know what I mean?
It is a weird, like it's only been in the last few years that we've kind of crossed over to the world where like people actually give a shit about us enough to want to come speak to us about it. I wholeheartedly love it. Those kind of conversations. It feels there's only so many responses I can give to like your music is so awesome to me, so on and so forth. It's kind of just like, if I say thank you, like I genuinely mean that. It's just like I'm very fortunate that there's a lot of people that want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm like, I'm never going to turn somebody away. If you come up and you're rude, I'll tell you to kick fucking rocks. I don't care. But if you like want to just talk to me because you are passionate about the thing that I created passionately, then I see no problem with that. It's never a bother to me with that. The thing that's weird for me is we've been a band where people want to take pictures with me for a little while. And that I still haven't gotten used to. I don't know what pose I'm supposed to do ever. I don't know how I look. So that one's still weird to me, but like I'll do it. It's just I never thought when we started off as like this crummy little hardcore band playing to like 13 people that people would want to take pictures of me or get my autograph. It's a very weird difference in the worlds that I perceived us being in. So if you're listening to this and you ever see me and you think you're going to be a bother, you're not. In fact, please come save me from Jay and Tim. I talk to them enough on here. So,
all right, last tour related question. Then we're going to talk band stuff. Okay. Is there in all the places you played, a lot of places you played, some places multiple times, every tour, I'm assuming there's at least one or two venues you've never played before. Is there a venue like Red Flag where you pull up to the building and there's one thing that oh fuck, this is not going to be good? Is there anything that exists like that that's almost universal, that if this happens, you're all going to look at each other like, well...
Anywhere in New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
I have a lot of love for New Jersey, so I'm not going to say that. Asbury Park has one of the most beautiful venues I've ever played, but Red Flag, if there's not a bathroom and the bathroom is dirty pre-crowd, not good. That means that like the one thing that you should really be trying to keep clean, you're not a good sign. If the staff is instantly annoyed that you're there, everyone is talking about you and everyone is excited to hear who gets to have the story of I told that guy to fuck off. That's a red flag instantly. Other red flags, not a red flag about the venue, but parking is such a pain in the ass with the van and trailer playing certain places. Like one of my favorite venues to play, the church is maybe one of the worst parking situations.
Oh, it's atrocious. It's atrocious.
So bad. I remember going up to Joe once and was like, hey, I was like, do you know of anywhere to get a spot? He's like, it's the fucking church, man. I don't know. Figure it out. And I was like, you're right. I'm sorry.
Even as a fan, it's brutal. Like you're parked like
awful.
Fucking North Philly, might as well walk there.
Yeah. Even the load-in for that is terrible as well because it's that like super steep, narrow staircase. But we will load extra stuff in just because we have no idea where we're going to have to park the van. We're like, we want to make sure if our shit gets broken into, the least amount of stuff they can take is in there. So
yeah, and that's not the best neighborhood. So
No.
Yeah, but parking is a pain in the ass. So like if a venue has like, oh, you show up, you're gonna park right here. Oh, amazing.
Is there venues that you pull up to, like we'll say like St. Louis or something, where you're just like, fuck, this is shady? Not saying St. Louis is terrible, even though I know it is, but there's got to be
Yeah, have
venues
you
that
ever
you
like
pull
pulled
up
up to a
to.
venue, Adam, and be like, yo, bag the show. Like, this looks like Beirut. This isn't good.
So yes, many times. I'm trying to think of like stories that are funny more than me being like, this place is awful.
Yeah, you
Let's
don't want to put
see.
anyone on blast. It ain't
Like
gonna
I,
get a
the
No,
bad
venue
because
review.
doesn't exist anymore, but I can imagine bands pulling up to the champs in
Yo,
Trenton
champ, yeah,
and
I
being
played
like,
there.
I
It was
played
yo,
there.
brutal.
yo, like
Champs in
what?
Trenton, I played a show there once,
That's a
and
shady spot. Yeah, man.
I didn't think it was that bad.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
okay, so I was talking about the Sanctuary in Detroit, the original location. I think that we deserve a trophy or maybe a medal of some sort for being a band that played there 3 or 4 times and never had our stuff broken into. It was like right off of 6 Mile Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. Like
Sounds
it
interesting.
was, there was no hardly any street lights. It was a blatantly like no, not trying to hide the poverty situation.
mm,
And it was unfortunate. Anybody I ever met around it, great. But definitely was like a, hey, every 15 minutes we need to be doing a century lap, you know? And that was one. Funnier story, Fresno, California. We played there and I don't remember who this band was. I think it was that band. So you guys remember the band Absence of Mind?
yes.
They had a different band before. I don't remember what their name was, but my buddy Rudy, he was just this energetic little spitfire of a kid at the time. And we played there a couple times and knew like, don't go anywhere by yourself in Fresno. It's kind of wild. And I think it was Rudy. It doesn't matter who it was. This person in this band, I was like, hey, like y'all need to chill. This area is not a place you want to draw attention to.
Mm-hmm.
He does something like does some sort of joke and then goes to sprint around this corner. And I swear to God, this large man comes walking around the corner wearing a shower curtain as a toga.
Interesting.
And like almost knocks him over just from walking. And I was like, that's why you don't just run around the corners in Fresno, California. Like, chill the fuck out. So there's definitely
is Fresno north or southern, or northern or southern?
I think Fresno, isn't that southeastern? Isn't it?
I'll just look real quick. I'm not great with California geography. California. Let's see. On a map, it is.
Yeah, California seems like it's got
southern
some hot spots in it.
Oh, dude! Also, we were just in San Diego for my birthday this last year, and downtown San Diego was maybe the most depressing place I've ever been in my entire life.
Depressing?
I mean, droves of people just blatantly on hard drugs, having no idea where they are,
God,
just
man.
walking laps around the venue because there was nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was sad.
Yeah,
like it wasn't like an unsafe thing. I was just like, man, this like really bums me out to see because like you strike up conversations with a few people that are like that know what's happening, and you're just like, oh, like end of the day, you remember these are all like people, and it's just such a crazy. It's just a very dark statement, but it's like you're like, oh dang, like your human nature and instinct is to survive, and you're surviving so that you can live to do this tomorrow.
Yeah,
and that was like all I could think about on my birthday. I was like, fuck that, this sucks.
Yeah,
and then we had to play fucking a House of Blues venue that had a barricade for a 300 cap room, which was dog shit.
That's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I'm going out there I fly out there Sunday. It's a very odd city because the weather is perfect and you've got Coronado, you've got the Marines, you've got the Navy SEALs, and then you've got some of the worst poverty because it's great weather, right? If you're going to be homeless, you want to be homeless year round in San Diego, and Tijuana is not that far away. So,
and that's not me being disparaging towards like San Diego as a whole. I love parts of that city. It's beautiful in parts, but downtown where the Voodoo Room and House of Blues San Diego is can suck my dick. I never want to go back there.
Adam, have you guys done Mexico? Have you ever played Mexico?
No, actually.
Okay.
No, we haven't.
So here we go, Tim. Let's segue. What do you guys got? You got a new album coming out, right? What's the plans for next year, Adam? Some support stuff prior to that, or are you gonna lay low until it comes out? What are you guys doing?
So the reason that we were not planning to do any substantial touring this fall, we were going, if we got something to do overseas, we were going to take it, but we realized at the end of this Boundaries Run, we played 5 full US tours off of this last record.
Wow.
It's probably time to chill. Like, we've been to all these cities. There were some venues that we played 4 times in under a calendar year. And
is one of them Chain Reaction? Because I feel like you guys play there a lot. Yeah.
I would just like to call out that Hatebreed toured off Satisfaction for 5 years, so you're okay.
Yeah, but we didn't put Satisfaction out, so that's different.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's not our record, so we can't tour off a Satisfaction, unfortunately. But that
would be an interesting turn. Yeah. Hey, we're just gonna do Hatebreed covers for the next.
Hey guys, glad you're here. We're gonna do an album play for somebody else.
They're thinking of that. Hatebreed could tour off a Satisfaction right now.
Yeah,
and it's
that's the difference. Satisfaction and Perseverance are like the blueprints. So yeah, of course they toured on that forever. But
yeah, that's hilarious, man.
But yeah, so we were like, we need to probably, for the sake of keeping our demand when the new stuff comes out, stop playing all these same cities. Like rooms that, like I was talking about, like Marquee Theater in Denver, played there 4 times. Played there on our headliner the day after we announced that we were going to be back there in the fall with Stick to Your Guns. And we showed up there that day, and there was already a flyer for our show coming back in 90 days, like to the date.
Wow.
So played a lot of the same rooms a ton, which I will play Denver every month. I'll play Mesa, Arizona every month. I'll play Philly every month. You know, there's places where I will always go back to because we always know there will be love and support. But for the sake of trying to make our next headliner as special as we could, we wanted to be like, let's cut it off. People still want to see us. That's where you want to lead them. You don't want to be the band that people are like, I'm not going to go see them. I've seen them too much. So you want to be the band that leave them wanting more. And then when you've got even more to make them want, that's when you show back up. So that was the plan, was we weren't going to do anything. And then we got handed this tour with the Ghost Inside. We're like, hey, you're going to play in 1,000 cap room almost every day. And we're like, we should probably do that. So that was where that one was like we can't say no to this.
One more touring question.
Yeah.
How bad is it to go to a venue and it is fucking sweltering in there? Like how many times? Because I kind of feel like I picture that being like a normal 3/4 tour thing where it's just like you walk in and you're like, oh my God, the air's broke. It's fucking August.
So I grew up playing baseball constantly and was outside 7 days a week, every day of my childhood, no matter what the weather was. I don't mind heat. I'm one of those weird people where like, I'm fine. It's like this weird, like masochistic thing of me where like, if I'm disgusting and super sweaty, I'm like, yeah, I earned that shit. So it doesn't bother me a ton, but it is a factor for a lot of people. Some people don't handle it as well as I do, but like Nile Theater in Mesa, Arizona, the Nile Underground in that venue is an underground venue in Mesa where we played there on our headliner last year in either July or August. And I think they had like a record setting. Like, I don't think any other state had ever had this many consecutive days in a row that were over 110 degrees. And that place was so hot that like there's a door in this alley that you go in to load in. And when you stuck your hand into that door, when the show was playing, like, and there were people down there, you could pull it out and physically see a moisture line on your arm.
Wow.
It was one of those things where loading onto the stage, I like looked over and happened to be playing upstairs with Havoc that same night. So they were off to the side. They did a little secret set right before we played. And I look over at them after we like loaded on, and I was like, I'm drenched, and all I did was like set some waters and set lists down. It's like we're about to play for 45 minutes. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. And you get through it. Your adrenaline goes in, and that accounts for a lot. But it definitely can ruin some people's day for sure. I'm not one of those people, but I understand when it does.
Is there venues that are freezing cold as well, where that's got to be uncomfortable as hell too?
Also, gotta fuck with your throat too, right, Adam? If it's too cold.
Not really. It's no different than being outside. You just got to make sure you're staying hydrated, and not breathing through your mouth as much. But cold isn't as bad when you're playing as it is if you're just like sitting around trying to relax and it's cold everywhere. That's a bummer. But cold is not as bad to get through most of the time for people.
Yeah, because I would assume once the band gets going, like your adrenaline's going, so you kind of warm up yourself anyway.
100%.
Okay.
Dude, in a room that a room that's 110 degrees outside, like you got to be. I would be suicidal. Like when I'm a fat guy and I run hot, I sweat in the shower. When I get that hot, like my brain cuts off and I literally turn into like fucking caveman SpongeBob, where it's just grunts because I can't even think. I'm so angry that I'm so hot. It literally Kim hosts me down like fucking P.T. Barnum with the elephant because I literally can't think. My brain just I switch off.
Yeah, it definitely gets pretty gross. What was crazy about that night was like you finish your set and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go outside and it's gonna be nice. And because usually like no matter how hot it is outside, you think I've just been doing so much. I've been moving so much. I'm so sweaty that like no matter where I go, what it feels like outside, it's gonna feel better than it does in here. You walked outside, and it was almost like you were checking your oven while it's preheating. It was no better outside. And it was night. It is 11 p.m. and I'm like, this is fucked up.
How come people always say the dry heat is better than humidity? Because to what you're saying.
That was the joke we were making the whole time. We had a day off the day before when we hung out in Tucson, and it was like, in the rain, like you got to get to your car, but it's pouring down rain, so you just like run to your car. That's how it was in the dead of day, just because it was so hot. And the joke we would say is like we'd be like walking out, everyone's heaving, like, yeah, but it's dry heat. Like fucking whatever. It's still so hot.
I have a good friend who was in the Marines and he was stationed in Liberia over in Africa. And when I asked him, I said, how was it? He said, I understand now more than ever why there is so much violence in Africa. He said, imagine being so hot that all you want to do is take a shower. And you take a shower, and the second you turn the faucet off, you are just as soaked as before you got in the shower. He's like, and then you go to put your boxers on and they stick to you. He said, literally, I put my boxers on and I wanted to shoot everyone. I was so hot and so angry. And it's like that all the time. He's like, that's why there's so much violence in the continent of Africa, because it's so hot, nobody can think straight.
Their brains are cooked for sure. Yeah.
So one more thing. When you guys play Furnace Fest, I'm seeing the shots from stage. It looks like there's 200,000 people there. How many people is there? Because you guys posted your set. There was a couple pictures. And then I watched Mike's drum cam, and I was like, dude, it looks like there's like fucking 200,000 people there. Like, what is the cap on that?
I think that fest is actually not that big. I think they sold 7,000 to 8,000 tickets, maybe.
Oh, that's it. Oh, I mean, so 7,000 people.
It looks. I mean, there wasn't 7,000 people there when we played, but the difference in that layout versus like a not fest is the square footage of the area they're standing in is substantially smaller. Right. Now it feels fucking awesome when you're on stage. It doesn't. You could tell me it's 200,000 people. I'm like, yeah, probably. Like it's in the moment. You can't see the end of the crowd, and that's always a really cool experience. But yeah, that fest is actually one of the smaller selling outdoor festivals, just because the land is not capable of selling that much more. So,
and do you get nervous on stage anymore?
No.
I figured that. But
My
here's the
my
thing,
nerves
though.
are all based around, is our shit gonna work?
Okay. But I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say that they get more nervous at a smaller crowd than they do a bigger crowd. And I've always wondered why that is.
I don't get nervous. It is more uncomfortable
Okay.
because bigger crowd, I can go the whole set and not look at the same person twice. But
Yeah.
it's also like if there's a lot of people there, the energy is easier to feed off of. When it's just you in a room, like it feels, you ever moshed in your house? It feels fucking corny. So like it's not any better when there's like 15 people in front of you and you're trying to get these people to like fight. You're like,
Yeah.
it's awkward, especially because it makes the performance aspect of it feel that much more niche, which then makes the whole intensity of it feel inauthentic.
Yeah.
Like
And
I
there's
can
more.
act all crazy and like have these weird faces and do this shit in front of 400 people and nobody bats an eye because
Nobody
it's like,
bats
oh,
an
I'm
eye.
working all these people. But if it's like you and your buddy and I'm like
14.
doing this at you guys, like
Yeah.
it's fucking weird. So
And
it's
there's more
not
impress me bros with 150 than 4,000. Yeah.
100%. And that's another thing is some of the craziest shows I've ever played were in rooms to less than 100 people, but the ones that I'll always remember are the ones where like we played to that Furnace Fest set was 8 minutes. We played in the middle of No Cure's set. They were given a 40-minute slot and they're like, we're not doing that. Do you want to play some songs? We were like, yeah. So middle of their set, we traded instruments. We played 3 songs. And those 3 songs was like one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
That's awesome.
So like it's all subjective, but yeah, I mean, I don't get stage fright if that's what you're asking. I don't remember the last time that I did. It's always been a matter of I just hope that once we get going, something doesn't go wrong technically.
Right.
All right. Cool. I think as soon as Jay started asking these questions, like a bunch started popping in my head. So
Yeah, I'm
we'll
open.
get off there.
I'll talk to y'all about this however long you like.
All right. All right. So new record.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys finished? Are you recording? Are you finished? What's going on with this? You don't have to obviously tell us anything that we don't need to know, but
I'll give you more of the private details off the record. But the record was finished in April. Not finished. We're still waiting on a couple of guest spots from some people, but we were finished all of our recording in April with Randy up in Jersey, up in Newton, and it is by far the most ridiculous songs that we have ever written.
That's the typical answer, though.
Yeah, but
he didn't say it's our heaviest record yet, because that's
I was just breaking balls.
I hate to break it to you, it is our heaviest record yet.
I'll be the judge of that.
Brother, if you disagree with me, I think you need to stop this podcast. It is, and it was deliberately that way. I think Orthodox has always been a very heavy band. We've never really spoon fed it to people though.
Oh yeah.
And this record, there are multiple moments. Oh yeah, I don't care. There's definitely moments on this album. We kind of like looked at what we thought the last record was going to be this big thing because the songs, I still think a lot of those songs are really good.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I think some of my lyricism was a little niche. I don't think my personal like vocal performance was its best in certain parts. And I think some of the songs could end earlier than they do, but we were trying to do this big metal record for our debut with Century Media. And so that's kind of what we went with. And then once we put it out, we realized, oh, people just like us for the same shit they liked on the last two. But now we know how to do it even better. So we took those elements that we saw direct results from in our faces in those 150 shows that we played. And we were like, let's do what we know we enjoy playing that will also just make these people be like, what the fuck? And so the crazier parts are 10 times crazier, and the dumber parts are just dragging your knuckles so hard you're leaving a mark. Like it is
good shit.
It is there's multiple points on the album that make the heaviest parts of Learning to Dissolve feel insignificant. Like it is truly nothing like what we've. It's not that it's nothing like what we've done before, because it tracks linear wise. You can listen to this and the last one, like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But we did a lot of things that we hadn't done before. I actually got vocal lessons before we went into the studio for this one, and I can say for the first time in my life, I sound like a freak. It's kind of cool. And it is just it is a recognizable but substantially better product than anything that we've put out.
Are you guys expecting a single this year, or you're waiting everything till next year?
Everything's going to be 2025. It'll be middle of Q1 into Q2 for like the full rollout for everything. Okay. So you'll hear from us, I think, around February, March, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Any tentative title or anything like that?
Oh, I've got all of it, but
okay,
I'm not saying it here.
Yeah, no, you ain't got to say nothing. No, that's keep your shit private, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, yeah, seriously, really looking forward to it, because, dude, like Learning to Dissolve, like when it came out, I was just like, I don't know if they're going to be able to top, the previous record. But then it came, I listened to it, I was like, Jesus Christ, yeah, I was wrong. Because it's like, a lot of bands always say, like, yeah, we matured to the point where, like, this is our best record, and then they put it out, and I'm like, oh, like, what are you talking about? But I kind of feel like that's the thing where a lot of bands say just for publicity reasons and shit like that. But
yeah, I mean, every band is more excited about their new songs, so they haven't played it 1,000 times.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, with that said, I think objectively speaking, if I was just a listener, I think I'll understand if some people's favorite songs are still from Sounds of Loss for nostalgic reasons, or if Cave In is still your favorite riff. I get it. Those are cool parts. No harm, no foul. As a full piece, I don't know that I'd hear an argument that this isn't the best collection of songs that we put out. I'll understand if somebody likes the other stuff more because it just hit them at the right time or whatever, but I think collectively these songs are just everything that we've done to whatever point. Like Austin wrote crazier stuff. I did things vocally I've never been even able to do before. Mike went insane on the drums on this record. And Randy just figures out a new trick to put in his belt every record he does. And he smashed these recordings. We told him we wanted to sound like airplanes falling out of the sky, and it straight up does. So,
all right.
Well, let me ask you this, because on Learning to Dissolve, there's parts of that record where it's so fucking dark, and I don't know if you guys meant to do it that way. I mean, obviously, I know that it's dark music, it's heavy and all that stuff, but there's parts of Learning to Dissolve where it's super dark and it's super like, yo, man, like I feel that shit. Like, did you guys lean on that a lot in this record? I feel like maybe you did, because I feel like what is this, your fourth record, right?
Fourth LP, yeah.
I feel like as a band progresses and gets a little like mature, and the band is pretty much all the same members, I feel like you guys can go, you know what, we don't have to write music for people. Now we're going to write it for ourselves. So now we're going to make it where it's super dark, it's super heavy, and we feel it, and not we're like, yeah, let's put this record out and like we're gonna put a mosh part here just to appease everybody. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think luckily all of us love breakdowns, so like adding mosh parts, no trouble. But
that's not what I meant. I'm just saying, like a lot of bands will put out certain parts just to appease fans. But I feel like
100%. And there comes a point where like if a song calls for something so much that you can't avoid it, then you kind of need to just, if everyone's like, I don't really want to do that, but like it has to, then like just do it, because that's what feels right. But I think in terms of darkness, I think it's just as dark, but a completely different delivery of those feelings. We did a lot of not a lot, but there's like 4 or 5 different parts where like the song drops out and we have this like ambient dark guitar thing happening on the last record. we don't really do that on this album. This one was more leaning on the side of chaos and just leaving our foot on the gas pedal. So like I would say there's two songs that are probably sonically and lyrically some of the darkest things we've ever done. But then on the other hand of that, we have a song that is probably like, aside from maybe Become Divine, is the happiest song that we've ever written. So
okay.
Not lyrically, but sonically, like it's very like, whoa, cool, like fun, you know? So it's the dynamics of this are similar, but there's enough differences in how it's delivered that I think it'll be received very different.
Yeah, I mean, because even on like Sounds of Loss, like there's some dark fucking tracks on that record.
That record is, every album has a theme with me. It's hard for me to not try to connect pieces as I'm going because that's just something I appreciate. And it's hard for me to hear songs back to back that don't have anything to do with each other. It's just, that's a weird thing for me to write. But that album was specifically a concept record. So like, even in the way that the songs flowed, we wanted it to tell a story. And then I wrote certain lyrics in mind with, this is where this is on the record, so it needs to be this point in what this is being told. So
I don't remember asking, did Mike play on that record?
No, I'm the drums on that record.
You did. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. And then so now so you got me real excited because I honestly think, and this is no shade on anyone in your band, I've said this a million times publicly, I think Mike could possibly be one of the best drummers in extreme music. Like that dude is just so fucking good at what he does, man. And I seriously think it makes your band that much better.
Oh, 100%. Drums are the most important part of a heavy band, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like absolutely. If you're not hitting your fucking drums and you're not solid and doing something interesting, then there's a million other bands who are. Yeah. So like if you don't have a good drummer, the rest kind of falls apart.
Do you miss it, Adam?
Playing drums?
Yeah.
I mean, I was never the live drummer for Orthodox, but I do miss performing. It's been 6 years, I think, since I played drums live.
Wow.
I do miss that.
Purgatory,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I do miss that. There's other projects that I've got. Me and, Henry from Chamber have like this band we're trying to start, but finding the time as an adult already, but then we also have to prioritize our time around the idea of like, hey, we're both in full-time touring bands. So it's just very difficult to do, but I will play drums for a band again one day, I'm sure. I don't want to do vocals for anything else.
I heard Archspire needs a new guy if you want to work on your gravity blasting. I mean,
oh, is that the one where the dude like raps? He's like,
he is so insanely fast. It's yes. And they actually just posted a video of people who did auditions, and they were all watching the auditions. It's I listened to an interview with him where he talked about there's certain letters and consonant strings that he avoids because you can't do them at speed because you start tripping over your own words. I was like, thought it that way, but yeah, he's like hard K's and hard consonants. He's like, it just doesn't sound right.
Not only that, but like for me, I've got big lips, hard P's and B's. I'm like all over the track. Like there's lines that we record, me and Randy, where he's like, you hit that P too hard. And we will sit there and take these like a full line trying to just get the P at the beginning of one word right for like 15 minutes. And I just can't figure it out. Drives me absolutely fucking crazy because it'll be just enough that you can really hear it. And there's some parts I'm like, you can't hear it there. But there's even like, there's one on the record that we left and we're like, I'll listen back to it. I'm like, you can hear that son of a bitch for sure. Like it is there. But
being a drummer with like, the two newest records, are you letting Mike take over all drumming duties, or are you like, hey, like, can we add this part? Like, are you just giving him full range? Like, man, do whatever you want. Because obviously he's a good enough drummer to take the reins, but do you still give input with like guitar riffs or anything like that? Like, how does that work?
So guitar, none of us can play a guitar like Austin can play guitar.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, he's
he
another
writes
really good fucking musician, man.
he we on this last record, Ben actually actually joined the band officially at the end of last year. He has a couple of contributions on the record. He has like an awesome solo in one of the songs. He's got a couple of riffs that he brought in, but 90 to 95% of the riffs are Austin. And the way that we kind of write that part in terms of how we affect any guitar stuff is I will give an idea of like we could use a part like this, and then Austin I'll hum something. Then Austin's like, okay, cool, and then he'll sit there and then he'll play something like, and he'll take my idea and make it his, which is always cooler. It's insane. Uh, and then he actually writes because he programs all the pre-pro. He will write a lot of the drums, which because he's not a drummer, he writes them to his guitar parts, which in turn makes some of the parts borderline impossible. And I think that's actually what helped Mike on this last record on Learning to Dissolve really level up was he was like, a lot of these are not a style that I would play, but I want to do them because they sound good. And he practiced in the studio hours and hours and hours and hours every day until Randy tracks drums last. So that way, if you want to change something in the process, you don't have to think about the drums are already tracked. So,
wait, how does he do? Does he do like a scratch track of drums at least?
No, it's all MIDI.
Holy shit! Okay,
but I mean the MIDI drums now sound like the real thing,
yeah,
and especially the way he's dialed in with his stuff is it. We had the record without real drums for like a month because he had I think Gates to Hell in there right after we were done, and so hearing it with fake drums, I was like, this is still pretty good. Like it sounds.
Fuck you, Mike.
Really
we don't need you.
But, yeah, right. But no, so Austin writes a lot of it, and Michael he'll look at Mike like, what kind of thing do you want to do here? Mike will give him what Mike thinks works in that moment. Austin will type it in, and then once we're in the studio, there will be like a day where Randy and Mike sit down and go through the songs, and he's like, how would you play this part? And they reprogram it so that it is the idea that came from Austin to match what he wrote, but it's Mike's interpretation of it. And then Mike has those to then go and practice.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, even like when he joined Zone Zero, he made that band 20 fucking times better just on his drumming. You know what I mean?
He is a gift to have because the only thing I have to worry about with Mike is if he's going to beat somebody's ass at the venue. That's my only concern with him. Everything else, he can back a trailer up great. He knows how to fix shit in the van. His gear is always nice. He always plays well. It is a matter of, am I going to have to break up a fight because of Mike White tonight, or can he see? Because he is blind as a fucking bat. Those are like the only two things with him. It is everything else. He's just dialed. So
yeah, it's funny too because like we seen him in Philly with Zone Zero, and he was just as on point with you guys as he was with them. And I was like, dude, like when he got off stage, I'm like, dude, like why are you so fucking? How are you this good? Like he just makes it look so fucking easy. Yeah. It's crazy, dude.
A lot of people don't practice between tours, but because Mike has had this, I mean, substantial leveling up over the last 4 years, he took that upon himself of like, I want to make sure that I am on it when we show up for rehearsals. I don't want a day to beat the rust off. He practices a lot. That dude practices probably more than anybody else in our band. I would actually not probably. He absolutely practices more than anybody else in our band.
Huh. Yeah, we did an episode last week where it was like bands that couldn't go on with a member leaving. I don't know. I forget, irreplaceable band members. And we brought you guys up because I was like, most of the bands that we talked about were like, you couldn't replace a singer, you couldn't replace a guitar player, blah blah blah. But me and Jay were talking. I'm like, all right, let's go to Orthodox now. So it's like, if Adam was to leave the band, how do you replace Adam as a vocalist in that band? You really can't. And then we thought about it, and Jay's like, you can't replace anybody in that band because they're so sophisticated with you guys are so sophisticated with each other. I just can't see anyone leaving that band and it being the same.
Yeah, I mean, the obviously like people can play our parts. We've had those discussions of like,
Yeah.
hey, like Shiloh couldn't play the Furnace Fest shows because he was selling merch for Lorna Shore. That's his full-time job, or not his full-time job. That's his big boy job. That's where he makes the real money. So like, he'll do a whole tour with
he
us.
does merch for them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! Did you see him last night, Jay?
I didn't even think to look for him.
Oh, okay.
Oh, bummer. But yeah, he that's like what he does to live. And he always chooses, like, if we have a tour happening at the same time, he'll choose us. But for like originally we were gonna do, we weren't even gonna do this like surprise set thing. It was gonna be like, it was one secret show at the end of day one with Bane, which was awesome. But he was like, I was like, we'll find a fill in, not a big deal. So we had a friend who played, Gabe from Chamber filled in for him at one point as well, and Gabe has also played guitar a couple of different times. We had fill-in guitarists for a while until Ben was actually available enough to tour full time with us. He was with Frostcoffin a lot, which was like his baby. And we were
I fucking love that band, really.
Dude,
he was in that band.
Yeah, he was in that band. He was a part of everything that band did up until this last little 3-song that they put out.
Dude, the riffs on that. Did he play guitar on that record?
I know he wrote some of it. I don't know if he tracked any of it or if that was all Jason, but yeah.
Dude, riffs for fucking days, man. I love that band. Good shit. We'll have to get him on, Jay.
Yeah.
Good luck, because he does not talk much.
Okay.
But
okay.
I'll tell him.
Yeah, tell him if he wants to, no problem. Or if he doesn't want to, no problem.
No, if you get him on the right topic, he'll run for it. But it's he's a shy guy, which is honestly what the 4 big mouths in the rest of our band, me included, need is somebody else to just like level us down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk in circles over things, and Ben's just like, that's fine. It's like, yeah, cool.
Or when Mike puts on Time Wave 0, and you guys are like, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh, dude, I'm yanking the wheel towards the barricade. It's just. But
I haven't sent Mike's. You got me thinking. I haven't sent Mike's stuff in a while. I got to send him some shit.
Yeah. I don't even. But yeah, so it's good to hear that we're irreplaceable in your mind, because yeah, we can find people to play the instruments. You could find somebody else to be me in the band if need be, and that's
not really. Nope.
In terms of getting somebody to do the parts, you can find. But to find, it's good to know that we have a notable chemistry that is hard to imagine different.
If I seen you guys without you being the front man, it would be completely worthless, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's no shade on
your
huge
statement, but I appreciate that.
That's no shade on any of your band members, because they're all great at what they do, but there's no way I'm seeing Orthodox without you singing. There's no fucking way.
I appreciate that, sincerely.
I mean, you just have that thing where you're up there where it's just that's fucking Adam. That's Orthodox to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not
There's no shade on anybody. That's not how I'm trying to say it. It's just how it's coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
All right, so we've gone a bit. So everybody knows where to find us. They know where to find Adam. We'll put some links in the show notes, and we look forward to having Adam on probably for our once a yearly. Let's do our end of year wrap up, and I'll share shit. Which, by the way, I got to give Adam public credit. Every year, out of his 3 picks, there's at least one artist I walk away with that I listen to incessantly. So I'm excited to see what Adam comes with this year, and hopefully this year I don't take the beating that I took fucking last year, where these two assholes just ganged up on me.
But listen, we have to do it this year in January. We got to give him some time off after that tour.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh no,
absolutely.
That is my time off, is right then. So you let me know when you want to do it. Let's if it's after Christmas, and
I've already got records that you need to listen to. So
yeah, I got my 3 picked already too.
I don't know about my 3 because there's still a few to come out, but I mean, I've got a list of albums that have come out this year, so I could talk. The issue for me is that I've been listening to a lot of country music, so I'm trying to not. But I've got one that is going to be on the list that Tim, I know you're going to love. Jay, I think you're going to love. It's going to be all right. I'm excited.
I more than likely have heard it, but okay.
All right.
Have you heard the band Crippling Alcoholism?
No, I haven't.
Then yeah, shut up.
Okay.
Jesus. All right, everybody. Okay. Find us next Wednesday, new episode. Adam will be back. Tim, cheers.
Later.